Hello guys, welcome to class. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the monohybrid inheritance. But before we do that, we have to have some background knowledge or some insight on the terminologies of the inheritance. So these are terms that we will be using often, frequently, while talking about the monohybrid inheritance. Okay, so let's look at the gene. So what is the gene? Now the gene is the basic unit of inheritance. It is a particular portion of the DNA that codes for a particular trait or character. For example, if this is the DNA strand, these are the organic base, this portion and this portion can be a gene for eye color. So from here to here can code for eye color. So that is a gene, a unit of the DNA that codes for a particular trait. That is what we call the gene. Now, it is important to note that the gene exists in two forms, okay, in alternative forms. And those alternative forms are referred to as the allele. So the gene exists in two forms, and those forms are the alleles. Remember, the gene are characteristics that are carried on the DNA. So this part of the DNA forms this part of the allele. This other part of the DNA, remember, they are double-stranded. So this other part forms this other allele. And now it is important to know that the gene is located on a point called the locus. So this is where the gene is located. The allele is in two forms. They are in alternate form, this and this. Now, this can be the gene for height. Let's assume this is the gene for height. Now, this can be the tallness gene, and this can be the shortness gene. So this is an allele. It can also appear in this form, tall and tall as well. Okay? So, now, when the alleles appear in this form, this is what we know as the homozygous, because the alleles are identical. The alleles are identical here, all right? But in the heterozygous, the alleles are not identical. So this is a gene for tallness. This is also a gene for tallness, but this is dominant over this. This is heterozygous in nature because these two genes are not identical. All right, let's move into the laws of inheritance. There are two laws of inheritance. We have the law of segregation and also the law of independent assortment. So the law of segregation states that during the formation of gametes or during meiotic division. Now, meiotic division is a type of reduction division, the type of cell division that has to do with the reduction of the number of chromosomes. So during that division, what happens is that the genes will always separate. Segregation means separation. The genes will always separate. Let's assume this cell wants to undergo meiotic division. And okay, let us look at the gene for height. The gene for height. Now, this gene now is homozygous for height. It is homozygous for height because these alleles are identical. So what happens is that during the formation of gametes, this will divide because meiotic division is a reduction division. This will divide to give just one of it to the gamete. This also can take one of it. So this is just the law of segregation of gene. The alleles must divide. So let's assume this is the man and you have the woman here also having, maybe let's assume that she is heterozygous for tallness, because these genes, these alleles are not identical. So she is heterozygous for tallness. During cell division, this divides, so she can either give this or this. So when these two gametes fuses together, they can form homozygous for tallness individual or heterozygous for tallness individual. So this is just the law of segregation. So let's move to the law of independent assortment. And the law of independent assortment states that the genes will always assort independent of another. Assortments means combination. So the genes will always combine independent of another gene. This simply means that the gene for eye color does not affect the way the gene for hair color combines. So let's assume this is a cell that wants to undergo meiotic division. And let's also look at the gene for tallness, heterozygous. Then the gene for hair color, it's also heterozygous, white and black, tall and short. Now, when this want to divide, the gene for tallness does not affect the gene for hair color. And so, it divides this way. It can form this combination. This and this, or it can form this and this. It can also form this and this. And the last one it can also form is this and this. So this is the law of independent assortment. This law, the placement of the genes does not affect another. So the gene for a particular trait does not affect the gene for the other trait. And they assort, they combine independent of another. You cannot say this must combine with this or this must combine with this. It doesn't work that way. They combine independent. They don't have a particular order by which they combine. And I will explain this more when we come to crossing the sickle cell individuals. Now let's look at crossing individuals with different genotypes. We have the AA. It can occur in this form. It can also be AS and SS as well. So we are going to be crossing all these characteristics too. Now let's try to cross an individual with the genotype AA with the AS. What happens here is that when you cross, you have an AA individual, you cross, you have an AS individual, you cross, you have an AA individual, you cross, you have an AS individual. So this is the first filial generation here. So when these two people get married, these are their products. Now let us cross the AA and the SS. Now the AA and the SS. AA and SS. Now this crossing will look like this: heterozygous for sickle cell, is a carrier, also heterozygous. All the children here will be carriers of sickle cell. All the children here will be carriers of sickle cell disease. So they are not affected, but they are just carriers of sickle cell disease. That means that an AA individual can actually get married to an SS individual, and they will give birth to children that are not sickle cell. So that is that. So let us look at crossing the AS and the SS. I think this is the worst combination you can ever think of. This will give you AS. This will give you AS. This will give you SS. This will give you SS as the first filial generation. So you have two sickle cell patients already, two sickle cell individuals, when an AS gets married to an SS. Now let us try crossing. If you cross SS with itself, it will all give you SS progenies. But if you cross AA as well, it will all give you AA. But let us look at what happens if you cross AS with itself now. AS and AS. Now let us try this cross now. This will give you AA genotype. This will give you AS genotype, which is a carrier. This is not a carrier, it's a pure breed, it's a carrier. This will also give you a carrier. It's not a sickler, but it's a carrier. And this will give you a sickler. Now this is where most people get it wrong. They think that, oh, okay, I am AS, I can get married to an AS too, because our first child will be AA, our second child will be AS. There's no big deal. Then our third child will be AS. There's no big deal. Then maybe we will stop at the third child. We will not get to the fourth child, which will be AS. But the law of independent assortment states that these genes don't have a particular order. They do not have a particular order. Now I can start crossing from this point. So if you get married, if you are AS and you get married to an AS, it is very possible that your first child will be an AS, an SS. So these genes, they are sort independent of another. They are sort independent of another. So it is possible that this can come second, or this can come first. So that is it. Let's give you a little fun fact that you should take home. Now, the marriage between AA and AA is perfect. The marriage between AA and AS can go. The marriage between AA and SS can work because there's not going to be a sickler. They are all going to be carriers of the sickle cell disease. Okay? Now the marriage between SS and SS is a no. The marriage between AS and AS is a no, because you definitely give birth to an SS individual, a sickle cell individual. So all these combinations are what you should have at the tip of your fingers. Know your genotype before you get married. AAAA can go, AAAS can go, AASS can go, SSSS cannot go. AS and AS cannot go. Don't try it. Okay, so that is just that for the test cross. Now in our next video, I'm going to be talking about the dihybrid inheritance. That is the crossing of two inheritance. The monohybrid inheritance has to do with the crossing of just one trait. So we're going to look at how we can cross two traits. So thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like this video and meet me in our next class.